Hi, this is Tucker with a flipped lesson on saying something substantial in our online discussions. We're about a month into the school year, and I want to go over what it means to contribute online in a substantive way. So, we're going to begin with some wise words by one of my favorite women, Tina Fey. Tina Fey is known for being a writer and actress on Saturday Night Live, and she wrote a best-selling book called Bossy Pants. And I remember when I first read Bossy Pants, there was a section called Rules of Improvisation. And improvisation is, in terms of acting, is when you act out a scene with no script and no planning. And so she has tips for how do you do that really well. And I remember when I was first reading this, I thought, gosh, this makes so much sense, not just for acting out a scene in improv, but also for engaging online. So I'm going to read you this excerpt. And as I read, I just want you to think about what parts of this advice from Tina Fey make sense for online discussions or online conversations. All right. The first rule of improvisation is agree. Always agree and say yes. When you're improvising, this means you are required to agree with whatever your partner has created. So if we're improvising and I say, freeze, I have a gun, and you say, that's not a gun, it's your finger. You're pointing your finger at me. Our improvised scene has ground to a halt. But if I say, freeze, I have a gun, and you say, the gun I gave you for Christmas, you bastard, then we have started a scene because we have both agreed that my finger is in fact a Christmas gun. Now, obviously in real life, you're not always going to agree with what everyone says, but the rule of agreement reminds you to respect what your partner has created, and at least to start from an open-minded place and start with a yes and see where it takes you. As an improviser, I always find it jarring when I meet someone in real life whose first answer is no. No, we can't do that. No, that's not in the budget. No, I will not hold your hand for $1. What kind of way is that to live? The second rule of improvisation is not only to say yes, but yes and. You're supposed to agree and then add something of your own. If I start a scene with, I can't believe it's so hot in here, and you just say, yeah, we're kind of at a standstill. But if I say, I can't believe it's so hot in here, and you say, what did you expect? We're in hell. Or if I say, I can't believe it's so hot in here, and you say, yes, this can't be good for the wax figures. Or if I say, I can't believe it's so hot in here, and you say, I told you we shouldn't have crawled into this dog's mouth, now we're getting somewhere. To me, yes and means don't be afraid to contribute. It's your responsibility to contribute. Always make sure you're adding something to the discussion. Your initiations are worthwhile. The next rule is to make statements. This is a positive way of saying don't ask questions all the time. If we're in a scene and I say, who are you? Where are we? What are you doing? What's in that box? I'm putting pressure on you to come up with all the answers. In other words, whatever the problem, be part of the solution. Don't just sit around raising questions and pointing out obstacles. We've all worked with that person. That person is a drag. It's usually the same person around the office who says things like, there are no calories in it if you eat it standing up, and I felt menaced when Terry raised her voice. Make statements also applies to us women. Speak in statements instead of apologetic questions. Nobody wants to go to a doctor who says, I'm going to be your surgeon. I'm here to talk to you about your procedure. I was first in my class at Johns Hopkins, so make statements with your actions and your voice. Instead of saying, where are we? Make a statement like, here we are in Spain, Dracula. Okay, here we are in Spain, Dracula may not seem like a great start to a scene, but it leads us to the best rule of all. There are no mistakes, only opportunities. If I start a scene as what I think is clearly a cop riding a bicycle, but you think I'm a hamster in a hamster wheel, guess what? Now I'm a hamster in a hamster wheel. I'm not going to stop everything to explain that it was really supposed to be a bike. Who knows? Maybe I'll end up being a police hamster who's been put on hamster wheel duty because I'm too much of a loose cannon in the field. In improv, there are no mistakes, only beautiful, happy accidents. And many of the world's greatest discoveries have been by accident. I mean, look at Reese's Peanut Butter Cup and Botox. So why would I pull out that excerpt and read it to you? There are golden nuggets in what Tina Fey has to say that I think really make sense online. Respect what your peers have created. Online, when you're participating in a discussion, we have to remember that everybody who posted something spent their time and energy writing that post. So let's respect it by really responding in a substantive way. I love that she says yes and, which is a great reminder to add something of your own. We're not always going to agree online, but it's nice to remember that it's your job to add something to the conversation. Build on what your peers have said. If you disagree with something, fine, but can you support your position with some information or show how it's different from somebody else's position? Don't be afraid to contribute. As part of our class, it's your job to contribute. Make strong statements. It's obviously great to ask questions online, but you don't want every reply to a peer to be a question, because then you're putting pressure on that person or all those people to answer all of your questions. So make strong statements too. Be a problem solver, be part of the solution. If people are confused about something or they're asking questions about an aspect of the discussion, be part of the solution. Add your ideas to help students work through things that they're struggling with. And I love this idea that there are no mistakes, there's only opportunities, there's only happy accidents. Because if we make mistakes online together as a class, those are opportunities for us to learn and get better. So if someone, makes a misstep online, we don't have to freak out, but we need to gently correct those missteps to help each other do online discussions better. Now, as I went through our early conversations, I just pulled some examples of your replies to one another that felt a little generic and unsubstantial. And these are really common. Students know they have to reply to at least 2 peers, and so the temptation is to just post a generic compliment or post a reply that's kind of basic. So, for example, this first one said, "This is a really good story. I wish I could write like you, but next time remember to bold or underline your vocabulary words to make it easier for people to see." Now, there is a great suggestion here to bold or underline the vocabulary words, but in the discussion where I took this example, this person said that, and then the next 9 comments after it also suggested that the person bold or underline their words. That doesn't need to happen. That doesn't need to be said 9 times. Once somebody makes a suggestion, that should be enough. And if you say you really like the story, what about it do you really like? Can you give a specific aspect of the story that you think is really strong? So, although it's a positive comment and it does have a suggestion that's worthwhile, I was a little disappointed to see that underneath it, 9 other people had made the exact same suggestion. If I was the student getting feedback, I would have been a little frustrated. Like, I saw the first person's suggestion, I get it, I should have bolded or underlined. I don't need 10 different people in this class to tell me the exact same thing. So try to keep your comments varied. Read what other people have already said in their replies if you're also replying to the same post. The next one says, "Scott, I thoroughly enjoyed your story and how well you use the vocabulary. Also, the way you wrote your story was very interesting because it kept me wanting to read." First of all, there's a spelling error there, thoroughly. There's also nothing specific about the story mentioned. Why was it interesting? What about the story made this person want to keep reading? So if I got this comment, if I was Scott, I wouldn't really know what about my story was strong or what to do more of in the future or what to do less of in the future. The next comment says, "Katie, I really like your story. It was very unique. It used the words really well. It is very descriptive." What about the story is unique? What words specifically were used well? Why were they used well? What about the words helped to, communicate meaning? And then the last one says, "Emily, you're absolutely amazing at adding detail to your sentences. Great job on using 14 words. That's quite an accomplishment." Here, they do point out that she used 14 words, but it might have been interesting to pull out a specific quote from one of the sentences that showed Emily using detail so everybody else could learn a little specifically kind of how she's writing her stories in a way that's really powerful or interesting. So, why is it important to say something substantial online? First of all, if everybody posts a bunch of generic comments or compliments, there's no real incentive to want to go back into the discussion and read what your peers are saying. So, it drives conversations forward. It keeps the quality of discussions high, so students want to come back to them. It also requires that you really think about what your peers have written if you're going to say something substantial. If you just say something like, wow, you use great detail, I love your story, you don't even have to have read the person's story. We all know you probably didn't read the student's story. So you need to pull out those very specific aspects of the story that you're commenting on, you're providing compliments about. So if you do that, if you really read each other's posts and you think about what you're saying to each other and you pull out specific moments from their story to comment on, you're going to understand the vocabulary, you're going to understand the concepts much more than if you just rifle off a couple, generic compliments and move on. So overall, my big focus is how do we keep these conversations a place where you guys are interacting in a meaningful way, and what strategies can we use to make sure that your interactions are substantive, they're meaningful, and they keep our conversations, the quality of our conversations really high. So I pulled out some more substantive comments that I saw as I was going through our initial online discussions. So I just want to go through these and highlight what I really like about them. So in the first one, it says, Jessica, amazing story. I love your unique verbs and adjectives. My only suggestion would be to change the word phase in the second line to phase. Keep up the great work. So they specifically like verbs and adjectives, which are very important in storytelling. They make a very specific comment about how to improve the piece, and they began with the student's name. And you should never post a reply to a peer without their name. You must use each other's names. It personalizes the online environment. The second comment says, Jessica, again, using each other's names, your story was so interesting. I love how you used your words to describe wildlife, and you can really picture what you're saying. Your word choice that you used throughout your entire story conveyed what you were explaining really well. For example, the abundance of berries, seeds, and grains is a great way to start a sentence because it adds an extra touch. So again, you're describing wildlife, you're helping to paint pictures in your reader's head, and then the student is actually pulling a specific quote from the story and using it in the comment. I think probably an even stronger quote could have been pulled, but at least it's specific evidence. And the last example says, Ashley, I really enjoyed your story. It was well written and used the words really well. However, on the last sentence, you might want to change, quote, having been deceived as they hunted down the foreigners, every last one of them was gone from their earth, because the grammar is a little confusing. It was a really creative and unique narrative. So here we have a little bit of like a compliment sandwich where you have a compliment, you have a specific suggestion for an area that was maybe hard to follow because of the way it was written, and then ending with a compliment. So again, you'll see I was only able to fit 3 onto this slide because they are more substantive, they're a little longer, they're more specific, and they have detail. These are where I want to see the replies to peers moving towards. So if you're thinking, I have a really hard time saying something substantial, I'm never sure what to write, here are some strategies you should write down and use. If you feel like you're not sure what to say, maybe you can present a new question to somebody in the class to kind of refine or redirect the conversation. Sometimes people feel like, well, everything's already kind of been said, so presenting a new question can kind of open up a new area of discussion. Share a personal experience. Anytime you share an experience from your own life, it helps to personalize online discussions, and it also helps you guys get to know each other better. I would always say feel free to think outside the box. If you're able to do it respectfully, you can play devil's advocate. So if everybody's kind of talked about an issue from one side, why not present the other side and ask if people have thoughts or opinions about kind of the other part of the other side of the debate. You can ask questions like asking for clarification or additional information. Make connections. So obviously you're learning about science and English. You have technology. You got all these other classes. You read books for your own pleasure. For other subject areas, you see movies. Can you make connections between these different aspects of your life in online discussions? Can you provide thoughtful critiques, feedback, suggestions for improvement? Can you highlight specific areas of strength in your peers' posts so they know what they're really doing well? Or maybe you are really interested in a topic and you're able to share an outside resource with the group to kind of, share another dimension of what we're talking about, or share more information, or, link to a video that's really interesting on a topic. So present a question, share a personal experience, think outside the box, respectfully play devil's advocate, ask questions, right, for clarification, make connections, provide thoughtful critiques, feedback, suggestions for improvement, highlight specific areas of strength, and share resources. These are all very specific strategies you can use in online discussions to make sure that your responses to each other are meaningful and keep the quality of conversations high. So please know, now that we've gone over this in specific detail, not only am I going to be looking for thoughtful replies to the questions that are posed in our online discussions, but you're also going to be assessed on your ability as a member of our online discussion group to substantively reply to your peers using a variety of these strategies that we just covered. Because what I don't want to see is the level or the kind of quality of our conversations dipping because students aren't taking the time to read and reply to one another in a substantive, meaningful way.